Hi there, welcome to another video. Today we're looking at just 1D arrays, why they are used. So, some key learning objectives are, I want you to be able to understand why you'd use data structures in general, understand how we would iterate and check the different elements in a 1D array, be able to create a 1D array in either Python or VB.NET, or at least be able to understand what one of them look like in pseudocode. Understand how we use linear searches, especially with checking values in an array. Okay, so first I'd like to talk to you a little bit about variables. So I'm sure you've probably used variables all the way up from year 7, and all I need you to know is, and you probably already know this, it's a part in a computer program that stores just a single piece of data. It can be changed. It's not like a constant. Constants always store the same piece of data, where a variable data can be stored, it can be overwritten, but the main thing is it's only storing one piece of data at a time. So here's how you would do that in Python. So I've gone name, and then the name of the variable obviously is name. The value inside it is Lenny, and it looks like this in VB.NET. Okay. So you can see the only difference really is the fact we have the word dim. Be really aware in VB.NET, dim is just starting a declaration. It is not anything to do with the name of the variable. So dim is just something you put when you're saying, hello, I would like to declare this variable, please. And then obviously it's followed by your data type. In Python, you actually don't need to declare your data type. It will just assume it is a string or an integer based on the format that you put in there. The only time you do have to declare a data type that you would have experienced is when you're gaining input. Obviously, just remember you are putting int input if you would like it to store the value the user enters as a whole number. Okay, so why can't we just use loads and loads of variables? So we have a variable called name, the value is Lenny. Let's say I wanted to add another name to my program. I might just call that name1 and call that Lola. But actually what we could do is we could use something better. We could use an array. So basically, if you think about any program that you probably would have come into contact with, so games, software, they have to handle basically lots and lots of data. So if I needed to store, for example, I've just got this screenshot of Mario, this is storing a lot of data. So if we even just take maybe the high score page, actually that would become really complex really quickly. So what we could do, instead of giving each individual value a variable name and calling it name1, name2, name3, blah, 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 we could just call it name and set it as an array. So this is where data structures come in, and they are really, really useful because they allow multiple pieces of data to be held together, normally of the same data type. So I'm talking about 1D arrays, 2D arrays, and something called records, which we will touch on in another video. Today, we're just looking at 1D arrays. So this is what it looks like in Python. So what we are saying is we have an array, 1D array, and the name of it is names, and we have 3 values. So Nicole, Jason, and Maria. Now, if I look at this in VB.NET, of course, it looks fairly similar. Again, we just have that dim and the data. Okay, so it's really important you are really confident with just declaring a 1D array. Because, for example, you might get a question that says, using a 1D array, and you might pick up marks just for writing out that array. You might not be able to do the whole question, you just might be able to do one sort of segment of it, but that still might get you a couple of marks. And that's what we want to go for. So, I have an array here called colours. So here's another array written in Python. If I wanted to print out the value pink, I would have to write, and this is in Python, remember, print colours 0. For VB.NET, I have colours, and then I would write colours position 0. So let me just go through. If I show you both of these together, I'm sure you might be saying, if you're not already aware, why are you writing sort of 0 here? So in both instances, you've written 0, but actually it's the first value in the array. Well, actually, computers will assume the first value is 0 unless stated otherwise. So what I would say here is arrays index, meaning they start at 0 unless stated otherwise. So when we go through and we have a look in sort of at arrays, you need to remember, if you wanted to output another value, basically it's going to include 0. So that value should effectively be one more than what you would sort of count if you were starting with 1. So really important here, arrays index at 0 unless specified otherwise. Sometimes questions say, for example, this array indexes at 1. That means the first value the sort of program is going to look at is 1, meaning pink would be position 1. But you can always assume it starts at 0 unless they say it in the question. Okay, I want you to have a little go at this. So pause this video, see if you can print out the value yellow. What you could even do is see if you can create an array yourself in your chosen language. Okay, so just to give you the answer then, you should have put in Python print colors 2 or console.write colors and then same with position 2, just because we are referencing that element. It was position 2 because we started at 0. Okay, so what we have here is we have an array called scores, and just remember, see if you can say this before sort of I write it here. Okay, so what value does my array index at? Hopefully you're saying the value 0. So position sort of 1, if you like, would be 0. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have a variable called total, and basically, just to be really clear, we also have a for loop. So this is obviously here. So where we see for and end for. So this is just sort of pseudocode. So this would be your exam reference code. This would be your pseudocode example. And just so you're aware, we just need to demonstrate, for example, what this is doing. So you might get a question that says, how could you improve this algorithm? They might ask you to do a trace table based on this algorithm. They might give you sort of some multiple choice questions on it. So, okay, so I'm just going to start to complete a trace table just so you understand what's happening. So I have my array. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the first value here. So the value of total is assigned the value 0 here. And then we're going to keep on repeating this loop until, now have a little look at our for loop. When is this for loop sort of going to stop? So we have for I 0, so starting at 0 to the length of scores minus 1. So the length of scores would be however long sort of this array is minus 1. Because we're starting at 0, we're going to minus 1 from that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It is 6 long So 6 minus 1, that's what we're going to do here. So 6 minus 1 is obviously 5. We're going to repeat until 5. That is what it's saying there. Okay. So let's get started. For I0, so we're starting at 0. Okay, so I'm going to put 0 here. And remember, we're stopping at 5. Total is given the value of total plus scores I. So there's nothing in total at the moment. And I is given the value of 0. So we are looking at this position here. So it is 5. Okay, and then we're going to output scores I. So if you're a little bit confused why that was 5 and not sort of 0 or 1, just remember this was saying just a second ago scores 0. So it's saying look at the value, look at the array scores and look at position 0. Well, I've just said position 0 is 5. Underneath that is 5. So that's where we get that from. Okay, so I've just changed sort of this top column because I actually put the word scores and I didn't mean to. I've just changed it to output, so we would output the value 5. Okay, again, we are going to repeat this loop. So the next value of I is 1, and then we are going to look at scores position 1. I've already said 5 is position 0, so we're going to add whatever total we're storing, which is currently 5. With scores position 1, which is the value 6. 6 add 5 is 11. And then we're going to output just scores position 1, which is 6. That's where we get that from. Okay, right, we're going to repeat this loop again. I is now, I'm sure you can imagine, it is 2 because we're only incrementing by 1 each time. Position 2 is 8. 8 add the value of total at the moment is 11. So it's going to be 19. And remember, we are going to output scores position I, which is 2. So we're going to output 8. Okay, I've just tidied up my screen a little bit. So let's have another sort of go at this one. We have I is now 3, which is position 0. 1, 2, 3 is 9. So 9 add 19 is going to give us 28. And we're going to output the value 9. Okay, next is 8. So I becomes 4. It's the next iteration. 8 plus 28 is 36. And we're going to output scores I, which is scores position 4 is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. And then what we're going to do is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 plus 36, which is going to give us 41. And we're going to output the value 5. And then okay, so now we have actually looped through every single element in our 1D array here, and that is just how you would sort of approach a trace table question. Okay, so we have an array called docs. We have 1, 2, 3 values in our array, and we also are going to allow the user to enter a dog2find and store it in the variable dog2find. I have a Boolean variable called found, and I've set that to false. I also have I, so I is working in the same way as last time. It's using sort of a value to reference, so 0, 1, or 2, to reference the different elements in the array. So whilst the value of found is false, which at the moment it is because we haven't found anything in our sort of array, We haven't found the thing we're searching for. And the length, the value of I is less than or equal to the length of the list minus 1. So why have I got a minus 1 there? Well, the length of the list is 3, but remember, we are only counting up to 2 with this array. So 0, 1, and 2. So minus 1 from 3 is obviously 2. So whilst the sort of value has not been found, and also we have not reached the end of the list, you're going to keep on comparing sort of the different elements with the dog to find. So if dog's I would be golden retriever, because the value of I is 0 and position 0 in our array is golden retriever. Now, if the user entered golden retriever here, it would say if dog's I equals to the thing that's in dog to find, which let's say it did, it would set found as true, and we would exit our while loop. However, if this is not the case, okay, all we're going to do is add 1 to the value of I. The reason we do that is because then we can check if dog's I, which is now 1, okay, equals dog to find, which let's say it doesn't, we are then going to ignore that and add 1 to the value of I, which is then going to check the third item in the list, but actually it is 2, position 2, and it's going to check if dog's position 2 German Shepherd equals dog to find. Again, if that is true, it's going to exit the while loop. If not, it's going to exit the while loop anyway, because the value of I is now no longer greater than or equal to, because it is going to become 3. It's going to exit this while loop anyway. If at any point found is set to true, only here, it's going to output found. If it is anything else, we are going to output not in list. So if found is always set to false, it will output finally, once we have sort of run through this while loop, not in list. Okay, so what you're going to do now is I've got a question for you, and I will give you the answer shortly. Go back if you feel like you want me to run through that sort of while loop there. But I'd like you to read this question, attempt it. I'd like you to read this question, attempt it in your chosen language, and I will show you where you get the marks in just a moment. Okay, so welcome back. I'm just going to run through. I have done VB.NET and Python as examples. So I'm just going to show you how I would approach this. So first of all, I would, and this is normally provided to you. So we would have our so we would have our one array along the top, and the first thing I would work on is ask the user what word they would like to find. I would tick that off, and as soon as I've got that, I'm going to go back and see if I can do sort of these two values. So output if it's true or false. Okay, so here's the VB.NET sort of example. Okay, so again, I have my array at the top, and then whatever the user is going to enter here, and I've just called it veg2find. I've set a found, and I have actually used the value count here rather than I, but don't worry if you used I, it means the same thing. I set that value as 0, and I just have exactly the same while loop as what we just had. However, instead of searching through dogs to find, we are searching through vegetables. Okay, so I'm going to show you where you would get the marks just when I go through the Python example too. So you can compare your answer with mine, see how far you got. Okay, so I have my example here. So this is the Python example. I'm just going to test that this works so you can compare my solution with yours. So let's have a little look. Let's check if potato is in the list. Remember, we've got to spell it exactly the same, capital P as I have put here. So let's hit enter, and it is saying true because it's in the list. Let's try something that's not in the list. Let's try a piece of fruit, apple. and it says false because it is not within that list. What it's done is it's checked each individual element and compared it to the value in veg_defined. Okay, so running through the mark scheme. Okay, so mark scheme A for using and storing sort of input. So this will be your console.readline and your input in Python. Using iteration, so using a while loop, mark B. It doesn't even say correctly. This is program design marks. Always up for grabs. Do not leave anything blank in your exam. Mark C to check each index location within the list or array. So this is using I, so the value of veg, and brackets, either count or I, this part here. Okay, so this is just checking each individual location, sort of with a reference number we specified here and incremented by 1. D for a loop that starts at one end of the array. Okay, mark E for comparing all vegetables against the word defined. F if it correctly processes a true match. And G for only outputting 2 messages, either true or false. Hope this was useful. Arrays are one of the trickier things to get on the GCSE, but hopefully you understand. Using a loop, we can actually check each individual element against sort of a value. They can be really, really useful.